I didn't live a fancy lifestyle. Everything I had, I just put into business. I didn't take any drawings. I lived at home with my parents. And if it wasn't for that, I would have run out of cash. If you're not willing to do that, business will go bust. Traditional kind of letting agents and estate agents, they're actually not property investors themselves. For landlords and tenants, they want things doing now. You can't leave them 3 days with a broken boiler. It's not acceptable. I remember the conversation with the doctors. Call your family now, your dad's going to die this afternoon. So I had a private plane with doctor on board. 20 grand, sold the car, I'd put my properties up for sale, every penny I had in the bank had gone on the operation. I had nothing, right? And within 2 years, I'd made more money than ever done in the previous 10 years. Sometimes it's better just to dive in, because what's the worst that's gonna happen? If you lose a bit of money, that experience is the best thing. Like in that block of 11 flats, I lost 300 grand on it. If you're going in and you expect things not to go wrong, you're in the wrong game. You need to be built for that. Be ready for that, and you got to expect it, because if you don't.
Oh my days, what a story. Jesus Christ. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Property People. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Hamza Anwar. How are you today, Hamza?
I'm very good. Nice to see you again.
Good. Hamza, you've travelled a very long way. You've come all the way down from sunny Blackpool to join us. So I'm incredibly grateful. Before we get into it, I'm just going to run through a little bit about how we know each other, a little bit about your background. You've run a number of successful letting agencies across the northwest of England with a combined portfolio of over 600 managed properties in the past. And since selling those property letting agencies, you've become a large property developer across Blackpool and various other towns and cities across the northwest of England, and doing everything from single lets to blocks of flats, hotels, and the standard of work that you've delivered, in my opinion, would make Soho house designers jealous, as you've created a collection of luxurious modern homes and service apartments in the heart of Blackpool, catering for young professionals, couples, group parties, away days, and corporate accommodation. It's nothing short of impressive, and I've been very, very privileged to be able to work with you on some of that stuff as well. So before we go into all the detail of how you've made all this happen, because it's no short feat, I just want to go back to where it all started, and specifically, who were you at school? Were you teacher's pet and brought an apple for the teacher? Were you a misfit? Did you enjoy school? Did you always think you'd be a property developer and estate agent?
Yeah. So with school, I was probably more on the geekier side. I was definitely introvert, and I really enjoyed school actually in the terms of the academic side. But I wasn't really kind of the sporty person. I was part of the chess club, so that was kind of the person I was in school. And then when I went to college, like I really came out of my shell and became a bit more out there, a bit more lively and all of that stuff. But yeah, really enjoyed school, enjoyed like maths, enjoyed the sciences. But I always had a passion for business since a young age. My dad used to have markets, and every weekend and after school, I was always helping him with that. We relocated to Blackpool because my dad actually opened a clothes shop there, and I spent a lot of my time helping him, going shopping with him, finding the merchandise, setting up the shop, and I really, really enjoyed all of that. And I started my first business whilst I was in high school as well, and we're importing keyboards from China and selling them, yeah. So I didn't know if I'd always go into property, but I always knew I wanted to do a business. But I remember, you know, when I was in high school, I used to be buying the Gazette on the Thursday because that had all the property listings, and you know, you spend that 50p. So I always had an interest and trying to highlight, that might be a good property or not. It's always a passion. I remember, you know, when you could order the Allsop property auction, they used to get them glossy brochures, and you know, you used to be looking through that and you'd be seeing all these commercial things, thinking, 8% yield seems fantastic. And I had some family in London, and they were always into property, and they were quite wealthy, and I used to think, is it the property that's made them wealthy? So it's something I was always conscious of and really, really enjoyed. And I remember giving advice to my father and trying to help him, and my dad bought his first kind of commercial property whilst in high school as well. So,
the interesting thing is, you good at school, or you enjoyed school from a kind of a geeky perspective, as you say, and playing chess club and stuff. at 16, did you stay on at school?
Yeah.
What did you study?
So I went to, went on and did my A levels, and I did maths, economics, business, and I also did physics. Yeah.
And then, so those are all tough subjects, to be fair. And then after that, did you decide to go?
I went to university.
What
I
did
went
you
to
study?
Lancaster University. With college, I kind of really enjoyed it, but I had a little bit of money from my business. I kind of started to live my life. I started becoming a bit out there. I was become a lot more sporty, etc. So I probably didn't give it all my attention I should have done at college. But then I went to Lancaster University and really enjoyed my experience.
What did you study there?
Management with management and entrepreneurship. The course it was called.
So, because you get different schools of thought, where some people say that education really has helped their career, and some people say, well, actually, you know, I've either studied business, but it hasn't really helped me because it's all theory, or I studied history or anthropology, and it's not really helped me, and I'm now doing tech or something. Do you think that all of that education that you went through has been a help or a hindrance on where you are today?
I think the foundations, you know, my education definitely has helped, but all my biggest lessons have come from actually doing it, from the experience. I remember when I first set up the letting agency, I thought I knew so much. I thought, you know, I've got this degree, I've learned all of that. But from day one, you realize you don't count for nothing. The real world is so much more different, and you just can't beat the experience of doing it.
Exactly. No, I completely agree with that, and I think that's the more and more people I speak to, the more and more that becomes more obvious. Is that the theory and the experience of being at uni and stuff is actually quite cool and quite fun.
The experience is amazing. Yeah.
And I know my wife is always kind of like talking about, do we send our kids to university? And she's like, the experience that you get. And overall, I happen to agree with that. But the letting agency, so. And it's interesting, actually, you say from a young age you were looking at listings in the Gazette. I've been reading this book by Donald Trump, The Art of the Deal, and he even talks about from a young age he was looking at repossession listings as well, and he actually found one of his very good deals for his early deals from that. So it's very, very similar like affection for real estate from a young age, it seems. So why letting agency? Why did you go into that? Why not become a surveyor, or why not go into planning? Why, how did the letting agency thing come around?
Okay, so it wasn't really a conscious thing, but there was some things that are going on subconsciously. So at the time, I was working part of a UK company, and they had call centres abroad. So I did a couple of stints looking after their call centres in South Africa. And they were outsourcing, you know, kind of their customer service out there. And I really, really enjoyed that experience. And it got to the point where the opportunity was going to become permanent in South Africa. And I was really excited by it. But my father's like, look, if you go there, it's going to, you know, you have to be ready to settle there. You know, things will change. You have to realize that'll happen. And culturally, I'm the only son as well. And I didn't want to leave my parents and whatever. And it's a tough one for me. And at the same point, I always had a passion for a business. I always knew I wanted to run a business. So I was at this kind of moment where I can pivot. And whilst I was exploring, I actually came down to London for a family wedding. And randomly, I always remember, like on the motorway, there was a Mercedes, which is wrapped with Martin & Co signage. So just a proper random thing. And for some reason, I must have Googled it. Remember, you had the first iPhone. It's called iPhone 3G. And then I just thought, do you know what? I've got a couple. So whilst I was in South Africa, I purchased 2 properties as well. So I bought my first 2 properties at 21. I had some money from my business prior. And
you bought properties in South Africa?
No, in Blackpool.
Okay, so you were doing well.
I didn't really know like what a good deal was. Just standard buy-to-lets. My dad had a friend who had a few properties. I had a bit of money from my prior business, and I thought, you know what, obviously it's a natural thing to do, just invest your money into property. But the agent was shocking, but I didn't know what to expect, so I didn't usually call the agent and say what's going on. So there's one tenant that hadn't paid rent for maybe 7 months, and I just paid the mortgage, and I just thought it was normal, like I didn't know what to expect. So I had that bad kind of experience. And subsequently, I actually bought that business out, actually. I acquired that letting agency.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But, so I kind of had that kind of experience of property, of buy-to-lets.
So what year was this that you bought this property?
21, that would have been like 2009.
2009. So people that are watching this, they're going to think Blackpool, north of England, just like where I'm from, the northeast of England, where the properties are generally cheaper than where we are sitting today in London.
Really, really cheap.
And so, what was that property that you bought and how much was it?
So I bought 2 3-bedroom houses. One was a terraced house.
Yeah.
And that one I bought for 72,000.
Nice.
Probably spent about £10,000 on it at the time, and rented that out. And I've refinanced it probably a couple of times since then.
So how much is it worth now today, do you reckon?
This is why in Blackpool.
Do you think it's gone up or not?
Yeah, it's worth about 110 now. So it's not huge capital growth, but the yields have been fantastic, and it rents for 825 now.
Right. So which is over £9,000 a year, which is, you're looking at a good solid nearly 10% yield. And actually, even at £80,000 by the time it's gone out 110,000, if you refinance, you probably pulled out a lot of the money that you put in anyway.
Exactly.
And this is 2009, so this is just after the crisis, the global credit
crunch.
crunch.
On capital repayments as well. So like my mortgage had gone down to paid down. So it's really helped, with my other developments. And the other property, it was a 3-bedroom semi, and the first tenant is still in the property.
Wow.
So the only kind of work I've done there, I put in a new bathroom and maybe some standard maintenance work.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I think that's the landlord's dream, is that they keep the same tenants, as not in this chain in and out and new introduction fees and all this sort of stuff. But what you decided was, from buying those 2 properties, you're going to get into the letting game. You didn't realize how bad this particular agent was because you had no experience to kind of gauge or to compare and contrast. So what was the so you saw this ad for a cool Mercedes-Benz Martin & Co. car.
Yeah.
So what were the next steps?
So Martin & Co. was a franchise letting agency network.
Yeah.
And then it just started off as an inquiry. At that moment, I was looking at business opportunities myself. I was thinking of a cold start business. I was thinking, shall I obviously commit to my stint in South Africa? So it's in that exploratory kind of stage. Also was looked at Subway franchise at that time. Subway was quite a growing brand. And then I had the initial meeting with the guys at Martin & Co. Following my inquiry. And they're like, look, you're probably not going to be the right fit because you've not got any estate agency experience. Obviously, you're really, really young, all this stuff. And just led to the kind of conversations, and they're like, look, have you got the funds in place? I did actually have the funds in place, all of that stuff, and it just naturally felt like the right fit. And
Did you call other, because there's other franchise companies available?
Yeah.
Did you kind of explore a few different options and then thought Martin?
Yeah, so I went to visit a guy who had a franchise in Chesterfield, but at the time it was a very small business. But for me, I thought, if I can get to like 200 odd properties, have a couple of members of staff, is a good kind of income, and it gave me a kind of a good insight. With Martin & Co. itself, it's not a very structured kind of franchise, say as McDonald's. It's like you buy the brand and you run the operation how you feel like is best in your kind of market and whatever suits your kind of business that you want to build. So it's really more of the brand. And then you kind of, as long as you're compliant with, the standards that is in the lettings industry, you're fine and just got to run it the way you feel fit. But from them conversations in 2012, I started my letting agency out of a serviced office in Blackpool,
And what year was that?
2012.
2012. So Rightmove and Zoopla, or at least Rightmove, they're up and running as well. So you're getting all your. So how are you getting your first landlords? How are you
classified ads?
Yeah.
Calling the landlords, what's going on, family and friends, basically leaflets. AdWords is very, very early at that stage.
Right.
There wasn't much coming from, say, the website I had or anything like that. Then we used to have, we mentioned about in the local paper, you used to have a property supplement, like once a week or whatever. So there's advertising in that. But the best kind of return on investment, I'd say, is actually from the networking events, funnily enough. So I know we had an event yesterday.
Yes.
And it's like that BNI kind of meet and things like that. And I think initially I probably got most of our landlords from that. But then lettings market was very slow. So if you used to put, a landlord puts a property on the market for rent, it might take 8 weeks to rent. if you rent it within a month, that was like
Done
really
well.
done well. So you had all these properties out on the market for a really long time, and then we had tactics like using land registry to find the landlord's details, try and
Sure.
contact them, or you put in letters through the post,
Yeah.
or if they're advertising it themselves, do the landlords a really next to nothing kind of deal, because as we know, property is very much about a relationship kind of thing. So I was very eager to get my foot in the door and then look to build that long-term relationship. Even sometimes I did lets for free, but it led on to so much more after that.
Right. So it could be a lost leader almost, just to win
Exactly.
the business, win the relationship, and then see where it goes from there.
Yeah, because with lettings, it is a long-term game. I think letting agents see it as still very transactional. It's not like that customer's going to be with you for years. Like we found our average kind of landlord would have a lifespan of 6 years.
So they would own a property at least for around, on average, 6 years
Yeah,
or so, which makes sense actually. So
yeah.
I owned properties that we've held on to for 20-something years. So
Exactly.
normally, if it's performing well, it's renting out, it's going up in value, why would you sell
Exactly.
it? So an amazing start, and you've obviously understood, I think a lot of businesses fail in the first, 90% business fail in the first 12 months is because they don't do enough marketing. People don't know they exist, so that they don't get enough revenue in, therefore they can't keep up with their bills, and so they fail. Your journey from that first year to getting up to 600, was it a straight line up, or was it like up and down, like a yo-yo? Did you ever have times of doubt?
Yeah, we got to 800 and we exited at 700. But yeah, we lost a lot of properties, learned a lot of lessons. And I think the success to the first year, because when I set up, I saw other agencies set up as well that failed. My overheads were really low. I didn't live a fancy lifestyle. Everything I had, I just put into business. I didn't take any drawings. I lived at home with my parents.
Right.
And if it wasn't for that, I would have run out of cash.
Sure. You made big sacrifices early on.
You have to do that. I think if you're not willing to do that, it's difficult. It's just the cash flow. I think a lot of business will run out business will go bust because they'll run out of cash.
Yeah. They're probably just too heavy on overheads that don't produce income, and sometimes they live lavish lifestyles, thinking that they've made it when it's they're only 6 months in to being an entrepreneur, and then they got illusions of grandeur, and they basically crash and burn.
Exactly.
So you actually got up to 800 and then sold at 700 units, yeah?
So
I'm delighted to inform you that Property People will be the official podcast sponsor for the Property and Entrepreneur Summit. I went to the last one and it was absolutely brilliant. A room full, packed property people from front to back, property professionals, investors, developers, landlords, architects, lots of service providers, and an exceptional lineup. And this next one is going to be no different. The lineup has Simon Zucci, Hayley Andrews, Shah Wasman, Jamie York, Jane Sinclair, and a whole bunch more. I recommend you get involved and inspired by a world of property and business. So if you'd like tickets, reach out to me, DM me, or leave a comment below, and we'll make sure you get the link, and I hope to see you soon.
the first few years, it was quite slow, the growth. Literally just trying to break it. You could get to go to a certain number of managed properties for you to kind of cover your costs. And as a letting agent in them days, you had quite heavy overheads. So you'd have like a couple of grand for Rightmove, you'll have your professional indemnity, you'll have the kind of memberships you need to operate, you'll have to advertise.
High street offices, everyone's on the
I
high
was in a
street.
serviced office as well, but that was very anti the times because landlords, it used to happen to me all the time where landlords like, you're not on the high street, you're not going to find me a tenant. And it was true to an extent, but Rightmove and Zoopla still at their kind of infancy as well.
The walk-ins weren't, it was still active.
So I had all of that kind of stuff. And plus I didn't have the brand awareness of being on the high street. So for the first 2 years, got slow, but I was kind of still hitting the canvassing, still working hard on that front. From day one, I always saw myself as a big business, even though it's just me. So we always had that system, the structures always went in suited and booted and had the right mindset. Had my first couple of staff come in after a year, started with an apprentice, then someone a bit of experience. Then the biggest thing that I think really got my growth going, because I wasn't a letting agent by trade either.
Yeah,
Was I employed a very experienced property manager, probably the best property manager in the area, very well known. I couldn't afford to employ her at the time. So I worked with a recruitment agent, wanted like a trainee kind of letting negotiate type role. And the CV came across to her desk, and I was like, let's have the interview. And yeah, I definitely didn't have the cash flow to afford it. And you know, is me sacrificing like the minimal salary I might be taking out to get her on board. But by getting her on board, I was really starting to accelerate the growth. Like, I felt like we had a lot more confidence in our offering. We were great anyway, because I was so hungry to kind of promote and do a great job for my clients. I was probably going above and beyond for what I was getting paid for. So our clients, they were staying with us, they were recommending. But then when this property manager come, like, great, now, you know, and if I'm meeting with the landlord, I can then introduce her to Debbie, and Debbie will be like, you know, yeah, a lot of confidence in this person. And from there, we started to get the bigger portfolios coming through. So we had a good little team structure. And in 2015, I made the step to move into high street offices. So there's like a little road where all the agents are, like you have in every town. And there was a corner premises that came up. And it'd been an estate agent's maybe office since like 1970 something. So it's always been an estate agency, really calling a prominent location, very run down.
Corner plots is brilliant as well, because you got dual frontage.
And I got parking on it as well on the side, so it's like great. And needed a lot of work doing, so it's like my first kind of like property refurb project. And yeah, the flat upstairs. Well, it's like offices upstairs, so purchased that in 2015. We did it up. We did the upstairs, we converted it into a flat. Downstairs, full refurb, but I had a shop contract to do it, and I'm so glad they did it, because I would have not had a clue what to do. But I always wanted like a glass office. That was my little thing, like similar to this. Like, I got my little glass office in the corner. And yeah, we got onto the high street in a really good location. And yeah, our business is starting to kind of grow, and we're starting to build a good little team.
Amazing. And just on that, the competition, I know that in London, estate agencies on high streets, especially back when I started, there was pretty fierce competition amongst all the different offices. Did you find that there was it kind of a friendly competition thing, or was everybody quite standoffish and a little bit afraid of you?
I feel like the industry's changing a lot now, but from when I was working, and probably with yourself, it was very traditional.
Yeah.
And there was a very tight-knit kind of community. And for me, like coming into it new, especially being so young, I felt like there might have been an issue. Next to me was an letting agency, 3 doors, was an estate agency. Opposite me was an estate agency as well.
You're the new kid on the block.
Yeah, and because our shop, and when we did our shop fit, we did it to a really good standard. Like, it was fresh, it had the maps on the walls, it had the LED displays. That no other agent was doing that stuff then. And we had like the glass office, the coffee machines, a bit like, you know, that Foxtons vibe going on, but in 2015, right? And for landlords, you know, they were curious about what we are about as well. And at that time, the buy-to-let was still quite a growing thing. A lot of landlords were investing in buy-to-lets, they wanted letting agencies coming to us. So, yeah, I think they were like very anti-change.
It was just,
yeah.
And the interesting thing is, actually, a lot of estate agents that start up, they are typically actual estate agent negotiators that end up owning their own branch or becoming branch manager, then owning their own branch. You actually just dive straight into ownership.
Yeah, and I think it's good, because otherwise I'll probably have a different mindset, a different approach to it, and you get used to just being... I feel like in my industry there locally, it was mediocre was okay. Just doing the basics was okay. And because I was in that environment, I wasn't accustomed to that being satisfactory for me in my past career as well. It's like always going above and beyond and getting results. And so we used to do, I was so confident in what I used to do is like, if I didn't let a property from my landlord within 21 days, I would do it for free. So we used to do these kind of things.
Oh, wow.
And the other agents just used to hate us for it. And like, yeah. So...
And so being a letting agent, you know, absolutely smashed it seems. Why not doing sales as well? Because estate agency, you know, there's sales, lettings, and property management.
Yeah.
But you stuck to the lettings and property management.
Yeah.
Why not go into sales?
So we did actually probably introduce sales in 2015 as well.
Okay.
Probably over the period of time, the sales at one point in like 2018, 2019, we had a team of 4 people looking after sales. But for me, lettings is just like, it's a gift that keeps giving.
Yeah.
As soon as I'd done the deal once, like you said, like you might have a landlord for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
You might have a tenant in there for 15 years. As long as you keep that landlord happy, you keep that tenant happy, you've done the work initially, and you keep getting paid. And then, like, you're going to do so much effort to sell a property, deal with the solicitors, get it through conveyancing. You know, for us, it'd be like a £1,500 fee at that time, or £2,000 or whatever. Like, I couldn't get didn't understand that the model, but I was as passionate about it as I was with the lettings. And because I had my little portfolio myself, I was so passionate about doing great value for my landlords. Yeah. And I feel like all the other agents, all they were interested about getting the tenant moved and getting their fee, or selling the property, getting that done. For me, it was about helping landlords build a portfolio, helping landlords get the best return on investment. Other estate agents wouldn't be saying, how can we help you get the most return on your property?
Right.
And that's a different thing from where I was coming. But yeah, we did do sales, and really in hindsight, I should have focused more on the sales, simply to sell my investment stuff, because that would have been the greatest funnel for the lettings business. And we used to find a lot of our clients was based down south, and they're chasing the yields up north. And probably should have done more of a tailored kind of offering to help them, you know, what we call now sourcing the right kind of projects for them, the deals, all that stuff. And, you know, we kind of offered that towards the end of my career at the letting agency. And, helped a lot of landlords. Over maybe 180, 190 kind of properties I've sourced for clients over the years. And, you know, hopefully still, you know, cash flowing well for them in Blackpool.
Good. And in terms of, you mentioned that agent at the beginning wasn't very good and you ended up acquiring them. What is the biggest mistake that letting agents make, in your opinion?
I feel like there's no sense of urgency in the offices. Like for landlords and tenants, they want things doing now. Like if you think about a tenant now, you can't leave them 3 days without a broken boiler. It's not acceptable.
It's not cool,
And if a landlord, and it's communication as well, like communication was so poor. Like if a landlord hasn't received rent, you should not let the landlord call you and chase you for that. That is your priority, to make sure the landlord gets his rent paid on time. And we're talking about stress factors, and it's like little things where the rent's not paid, you know, it causes stress in the back of your mind. Like especially if you've got a mortgage to pay, you've got your other bills. Like for me, like I didn't have rent paid for 7 months, and I didn't have many overheads. I was living abroad, I had my costs covered there. But I was like, is this acceptable or not? It's constantly in the back of your mind. So I feel like communication, sense of urgency, and not focusing on getting results for their landlord. So like for me, with my portfolio landlord, I'd sit down with them end of the year and be like, right, what's your strategy for next year? And they would, like, some of them wouldn't even know, and be like, do you know what, thank you for this conversation. And they can try and align what they want to do, or we can look at their performance. Because a lot of our clients weren't the kind of what we see on Instagram, where they're like, you know, all these savvy kind of property investors. They're like business owners. Or they'll be like accidental landlords, or they inherited a few properties or whatever. And the business owners, they're busy doing the great thing they're doing, their business day to day. And they're just investing their money, you know, in property as an investment. They don't really know where they should be investing or what's performing or how to review it. So that's probably what stood us apart.
And it's being that trusted advisor, whilst these people are investing in real estate as an asset base, but it's not their main thing. They're not full-time landlords. They're not property people necessarily. If they were and they've got massive portfolio, they'd probably hire somebody in-house and they'd be doing it themselves. But these are landlords. Typically, like on average, how many for the portfolio landlords are they holding? Like 3 assets, three properties?
It's 3. It's actually 3. So I remember it's like maybe 2.8 or 2.7.
Right.
We did the last thing. Like that'd be, so a lot of them would be the accidental landlords. and then might have the one property, or they moved abroad or moved down south for work or whatever, and then you've got you in the portfolio landlords who might have 4 or 5 properties, and then you've got the bigger kind of landlords as well. But I think you nailed the point there, is being that trusted advisor. So if you look at traditional kind of letting agents and estate agents, they're actually not property investors themselves. Like, it's very uncommon for them to be physically investing in property themselves, and they don't really understand it. Like, even the housing letting agency, I didn't see the side of property investment like I do now.
Yeah.
So in tunnel vision, and the little kind of value that I had was I was also investing in buy-to-lets alongside these landlords, and they knew I understood what I was doing, and I would always take them, show them pictures of the projects that I'm doing. And without me knowing, I always had a bit of a flair for providing decent quality properties. And it really stood out to our clients. And it's quite aspirational for these landlords to maybe provide properties like that and have better return on their investments, provide the increased rents.
I think genuinely that if your skin is in the same game as the clients you're working with, I think it communicates better, and it's genuine as well, because like literally all the same stuff that you're going through, or the way you should be doing things, I'm literally walking the walk as well as talking the talk. And I think it is powerful. I think it is valuable. I think sometimes some advisors, whether they're finance brokers or estate agents, underplay that. But I think for me personally, I always prefer it if I know that the solicitor that I'm using is doing the same, or the accountant that I'm using is doing the similar stuff that I'm doing. Because then I feel like that they're researching it and doing it the best way for themselves. So surely they're going to be doing it for me too. Now, when you're coming to the end of the road with the agency and you're thinking, okay, I need to sell, I want to sell, I want out, what's going through your mind at that point? Is it that I've started young and that, I've let me see how big an exit I can get? Or is it, oh my God, this is absolute exhaustion and I just need a break?
So
a bit of both.
I think back to when I started the business, at that age, I didn't really have a clear kind of exit plan. I did kind of have the guideline, like, I want to get to, say, 1,000 property, I want to be the biggest letting agency, and in 10 years' time, I might go and pivot and do something else. So I always had that kind of the 10-year thing, and I had an income kind of like target. Like a lot of people probably say, oh, you know what, I want to get to 100 grand a year or whatever, or 10K a month. And then when you get to that point, it's not really about that number. I think what accelerated the change for me was in COVID, when so in COVID, what happened was my dad was very ill and he was in coma. They stopped doing liver transplants. He was in need of a liver transplant. And so I remember the conversation with the doctors, and they're like, there's a week left for your father to live. And I'm just like, don't know what to do. Like, I've got a really good relationship with my dad. And the reason I'm so entrepreneurial from a young age was I was always trying to help my dad make money, because he was an immigrant. He was like always trying to work hard and provide for us as a family. And I just wanted to help him, really. So that's why I was always thinking of opportunities and stuff and trying to just put money on the table for him and make his life a little bit easier. And we came across where you can give your liver and you can be a live liver donor. But none of the doctors mentioned it to me here. We had private consultants, wasn't an option. And I discussed it with the doctors. I said, look, I want to get this treatment done. I'll get it done privately. They're like, he's got zero chance. He's not, if you take him abroad, he's got zero chance. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try. And it got to the day, a few days later, and they're like, look, so now in the background, I found about this live liver donor. I'm trying to find hospitals. I've got a hospital lined up in China, a hospital lined up in Turkey, having conversations with professors, not slept now for a few days. My dad was quite ill for a few months prior, and I ended up marrying my partner because it was one of my dad's last wishes, and so we had a lockdown wedding as well. Wow. So just before my dad went into coma, my dad got to see that, and we discovered like there might be an opportunity here. The chances might be low, and I decided to go and kind of see if I can go and donate the liver. But there's so many things that need to happen. My dad needs to make it alive to where we're going to do the operation. I need to kind of get a private plane with doctors on board. My liver needs to actually match. My bloods need to match. And then we have to give pretty much all of my liver because my dad's liver is non-functioning at all. So I thought, right, we're going to do this. And then I couldn't discharge my father because he can't self-discharge. He's in coma. So yeah, and he's locked down. So we had to do like it's online court hearing. The MP, he sorted that out.
Oh my
We
God.
managed to get him discharged. But in that process, I had got a private plane waiting for me at Manchester Airport, and they didn't let him discharge that day.
Oh no.
So I had a private plane with doctor on board, 20 grand.
Oh my God.
So then a couple of days later, so by the way, like a day before that happened is a Tuesday, and is in the afternoon, and they said to me, you have to call your family now. Your dad's going to die this afternoon. And there's something inside me. I didn't call anyone. Because lockdown, only one person could visit at a time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and in this time as well, like there's just an inner feeling that I knew how to do it. Like my dad's brothers had already arranged his funeral plot next to my mum. They're
so
like,
you've
you're
gone the whole
crazy.
way.
They're like, he's in coma. Like he's like 40,
Yeah.
38, 36 kilos, something like that. Like just bones. And everyone around me is like, look, you need to
Let it
wake
go.
up. The
Let it
doctors
go.
have said. And I don't know what kept me going. And then, yeah, so a couple of days later, we got the private ambulance, got the plane at the airport ready. Everything goes well. We get him checked out. And liaising with the professors in Turkey. So we found this professor who worked in one of the leading hospitals in America and taught there about liver transplants. And now he has his own practice in Turkey. And he's been liaising with us. He's adjusted the medicines for the doctors here in the UK, changed that. It's all great. So I got on the plane straight to Turkey. And then the doctors were like, look, there's a 10% chance your dad will survive the operation.
Wow.
And there's a 5% chance that you might have death on the table because of internal bleeding. Because we've got to take all of your liver out. You're going to have like 5 to 6% left. And we just, I just felt like it's the right thing to do. We did that. And thank God to God, my dad survived the operation. He's with us now.
Oh my days, what a story.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So
this is all whilst you're running a letting agency that's going great guns, and suddenly this bombshell just drops in the middle of you and your family, and you have obviously a tight relationship with your dad, and you're like, I don't care what it is, what I have to do, whatever it takes, I'm going to get it done, and I'm not going to give up until it's done.
My relationship with money actually changed at that point as well because, first of all, I think talking back to context of property gave me the flexibility and the income and the opportunity to kind of be able to fund this. But I was still 60, 70 grand short. And not for a second did I think that's going to stop me from doing it. Like, people forget, when you're talking big numbers for money, it's so easy to raise. Like, like people think that's a hindrance to them to stop them doing their business or their investment deal. There's so much money there. And I think pretty much all of the money that I was short got raised by a GoFundMe page. Like, it's crazy. So thanks to everyone that, supported on that. Yeah.
So whilst you're going through this in this COVID, so it's relatively recent, we're talking post 2020, which is only a few years ago, and your business is doing that. How can you concentrate on your business when you're going through such a traumatic experience with your family? How do you balance the two?
This episode is brought to you by our sponsors, XP Surveys. XP Surveys are the brainchild of Jack Jiggins and Ben Richards of XP Property, and they've been on Property People, so go check out their episode. Architects and property developers start their client journeys on the foundation of having the right data to make decisions. Understanding the building or the land you're working with, it is paramount to get started. So, XP Surveys offers fully referenced, accurate and timely surveys which enables enhanced and faster decision making, improving your productivity when looking at buildings. XP Surveys not only knows how to conduct the right measured building and or topographical surveys to meet your technical requirements, they know how to deliver them the best to support your wider relationships. So go check them out, links in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
So because I had like a real purpose, like with the letting agency when COVID started, it's very important to pivot. And it is great because in them first few months, I took on action. I closed 2 offices, which is the best thing to do because it just wiped off, say, maybe 10, 11K off the overheads.
Right.
Because people then were like and we're very much in a digital age then as well. So high street offices weren't as important. And our landlords were quite all right about it. We were still very keen to let properties throughout that period. So we started doing videos for each property, sending them to the tenants, and we were still facilitating move-ins. I bought laptops for everyone so everyone could work from home. We switched our telephone system so everyone had an app on their phone, like a VoIP system. So yeah, really, really good. I think for me, if I have a purpose and I have then the drive to do it. I enjoy doing it. And then with my whole family and stuff, I was trying to do what I could do. Obviously, I got, we had the lockdown wedding because obviously I had the whole thing with my dad going on and everything. And that happened all quite quick and everything. So it's adjusting to, married life, my dad, supporting my dad every day because that's my responsibility, hospital, doctors.
And your own recovery as well, because if you only got 5%.
So after the operation, that was August 2020, I was in Turkey for 3 months. So that was the challenge of running the business. So the team I had in place were not the right team.
Right.
The reason the business ran was because of me.
You were there.
Pulling all the strings.
Yeah.
I was working silly hours and I was paying all these people. I had 13 people at the team. We reduced, and it's just crazy. Like when I left the business, because I was literally for 4 or 5 weeks, I couldn't do anything. I had to recover as soon as I could get out of bed. I was straight onto a laptop. I didn't really, and I had just stress throughout that period. And I wasn't there for my dad, wasn't there, for my family or to look after my own recovery. And I realized the business was so dependent on me. And I think for a lot of business owners, they probably find that. So
yeah, absolutely.
when I but it was such a blessing for that to happen. But as soon as I come back, I got rid of most of the team. One of the people, managers that I had, she set up her own letting agency and took over 100 of our properties.
Okay.
The kind of letting agency took as an opportunity to kind of, speak to our landlords and get them across. My team on the ground weren't really managing it. We had a lot of properties just get dilapidated, or we took on new properties just that weren't to standard. Like Blackpool's like wild, wild west when it comes to property. Like you got all sorts of properties.
Classic though, you take your eye off the ball for 1 second and then suddenly all sorts of stuff can happen. Things that you kind of should expect, but you hope never happen, but still. And it sounds like, and then you're also, again, you're in recovery. So how much can you fight back and how much can you really, so how did you mentally and physically get through that period?
So then my focus was right, tunnel vision now. I got to sort this business out because that was so much stress over that 3-month period. And what do? I need systems and processes so this business can run without me.
Right.
So I got rid of the team and I was employing my friends. The manager was a very good friend of mine, but wasn't the right person to run the business. I had probably employed all of my local friends over the years as well. So we're not really employing for what we need. We're employing to see, who we know and to help other people and identify the roles I needed and put systems in place, put the Bible to run my letting agency in Blackpool.
Did you write that yourself? Did you get help from anybody?
No, so I did get a mentor called John Paul, who's very, he had multiple estate agencies himself, and the reason he's able to scale his business was because of his systems and processes he had implemented into his business. And we built our guidebook, and it's a platform called Train You, and you just put all the stuff that you need to, and then it's so much easier for me to manage my team because they knew this is how we want to do things. Blah, 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 blah. It's crystal clear. They didn't need to come to me for questions. And then I consciously made a decision a few months into this kind of process that I was going to come into business 1 day a week.
Okay.
And my team size actually reduced from 13 to 6.
Wow.
I outsourced what I need to outsource. Even though I might be paying a bit more than what I would have been paying my in-house staff to do, but it wasn't my headache.
Yeah.
Obviously, the 2 offices were closed. downsize the sales operation a little bit, but obviously I wasn't to know the sales were going to boom. And them efficiencies and the business now being able to run itself without me had a massive impact on the kind of profit margins, and our profit rapidly increased, and because the business is running itself now, it become very sellable. And someone approached me first.
Okay.
And
It
then
wasn't like you were actively going out like, I'm going to sell this now.
I was just focused on fixing that business so it runs without me,
And
right?
it's weird how through the adversity, and it's, I think it's a sign of a true entrepreneur where, when shit hits the fan, even the way you dealt with your father's thing, it's like never say die. You're going to do whatever it takes. And same with the business. It's like, okay, we just lost 100 properties here. Things aren't quite going well. How we're going to fix it? Solution focused.
Yeah. So, and then it naturally come into that 10-year point. And I always said 10 years. And I wrote down, I found energy. So always without now we know what the parts of journaling, but I always just have a notepad, like the one you've got now. Right? These ones, yeah. And I literally used to have a day book and literally used to write, my day stuff.
Just for anybody watching.
Yeah.
I always have one of these hardback as well.
Yeah, and I used to just use it in the day book and his journal. But very early on in my agency days, it's I'd put, if I would sell my business for X amount, and the business was worth a lot more than that now. And I thought, you know what? It's getting to 10 years. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and look, from giving that to my dad, I think I've had so much good stuff in common. Literally that time, I'd sold the car, I'd put my properties up for sale because I was trying to raise funds. Every penny I had in the bank had gone on the operation. I had nothing, right? And within 2 years, I'd made more money than ever I'd done in the previous 10 years. From my business income.
Wow.
So just from the profits, I'd made more accumulatively than I had prior. I bought my dream car.
Yes, you did.
Just all of this great stuff. And then ultimately, sold the business for more than I would have hoped for. And it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't forced into systemizing that business and making it run. And it actually was better running than it was with me pulling all the strings.
And you know what? That's interesting. I hear that regularly as well. Is that at a certain point, if you do it correctly, not only with the systems and processes help run it without you, which is the whole idea, but actually you're hiring people that do all those jobs better than you could do them anyway. So actually, when you start pulling yourself out, the business can even thrive even more so
100%.
if you've done a good job. So all of that is absolutely fascinating, honestly. And there's not that many people that I know that have gone through that level of extreme personal stress to be able to come out the other side still smiling and still saying that everything that happened along the way was a blessing. And so I think it's just a testament to the kind of positive attitude that I've experienced whilst working with you as well. So I want to talk about, you mentioned your family as well that are kind of into property a little bit, and they're based here in London.
Yeah.
You're in the northwest, and the difference between, because I've spoken to your cousin, for example, and he's constantly encouraging you to come here, but you've maintained that, I really like the northwest, I really like Blackpool. The yields are strong. What is it about Blackpool that really, really fascinates you, that gets you going? And why is it, because we've also spoken about this, why is it that you are an absolute advocate for people in London who are wealthy to bring their funds and invest in Blackpool as a high-yielding economy?
No, really good question. And rightly or wrongly, I can't base what I do just on profits and numbers. It needs to be a bigger reason for me.
Sure.
And I'm actually very passionate about providing good quality accommodation in Blackpool. In Blackpool, I've seen kids grow up in disgusting places. I've seen, so much drug use and social behavior. And the space that you're in, especially in growing up, has such an impact on your environment. And there's always memories of me when I was growing up in a little council house where we used to live in Rochdale when I was young with my dad's brother's family. And there's me sharing a room with 3 other people. And I used to hate it, but I know from that experience how much an impact your space environment can have. And it's such a shame where I see these children growing up in that environment, and I just feel like it's a vicious cycle. So for me, providing decent accommodation, the amount of value it brings to people locally in Blackpool when I started early on was immense, because the quality of accommodation was so poor and what was available to them was very limited. You just have to take what you want. So me bringing back to life old or tired buildings and providing this great accommodation brings me quite a level of joy. But what like my cousin probably is stating is like, look, if you did that stuff here,
Yes.
the numbers might be great in terms of capital growth, but not the yields.
Yeah.
And the capital growth, if you're looking to hold, you're not going to realize that until you sell the property anyway. So if you're holding for 20, 30 years, that capital growth doesn't mean much unless you can maybe, refinance it or whatever.
You take on debt, but then you're on the hook for that money, and then you got to make it work again. And I've been in that vicious cycle because I invested in property in London, in the north and east of London over the last 20 years. And sometimes I do think, and I invest in the northeast in places like Middlesbrough, where the yield is like super phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's that old age-old, like revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is reality.
Yeah.
And it's great having a great balance sheet that looks, you were asset rich. But in reality is, if you still need to, borrow money to jump on the bus, it's like it's all for nothing almost.
Exactly.
And so is that so? It sounds like the level of accommodation is so poor in Blackpool that there's an obvious gap in the market for somebody just to increase the standards.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the availability of just good quality accommodation brings you satisfaction, actually, and providing a place for people to work, rest, and play.
Yeah, making a difference.
Yeah.
Like literally making a difference. Like especially would say that block I'm redeveloping into town centre. That's on the promenade.
Yeah.
Like in a great tourist spot, but people are seeing these dilapidated buildings that have been all empty for 10, 12 years. And, we're going to develop that whole block, and it's going to improve Blackpool, not for the next 5 years, for 100 years. If 3 million people pass that in illumination every year, how much of an impact that's going to have. And I think sometimes property developers look at the numbers, but that building is going to be there for 150 years.
Yeah.
Just imagine like what you want that building to provide for that period of time. And for landlords as well, like the yields are there. Because with Blackpool, like up north, you've got great opportunities, but the rents are really good in Blackpool because it's such a dense population. It's the fourth densest population outside of London, sorry.
Really? I didn't
Fourth
know.
densest, yeah.
So there's got a lot of demand there.
A lot of demand, so the rents are good, but the property prices are still cheap.
Yeah. What does the outlook look like for Blackpool in terms of regeneration? I mean, back in its heyday, it reminds me of like Acapulco, Mexico. It was like this absolute top thriving destination in the country. But then the likes of like Ryanair and EasyJet that have popped up over the last 20, 30 years have seen a lot of places like Blackpool not perform as well as they used to.
Yeah.
But then they talk about fracking and stuff like that, which could bring along a lot of industry back.
Yeah.
How do you see the horizon for places like Blackpool?
I think Blackpool went through an ugly kind of period of decline over, say, the last 20 years. So obviously the package holidays came along.
Yeah.
Everyone left Blackpool, and it's had an effect. Like I remember my dad had to close his shop, maybe 2011, 2012, because it just wasn't worthwhile running anymore because tourism had just died down. But over the last few years, there's been a lot of central government investment, a lot of private investment, a lot of regeneration, and there's like 2 billion earmarked to be spent now in the town centre area. There's a lot of big hotel chains coming there. So the Hilton just built a 300-bed hotel. Holiday Inn has just built something. There's a 400-bedroom, 5-star hotel coming on this seafront. All of this is going to attract high-quality tourism, and it's going to spend. And I think Blackpool's always going to have that retro appeal as well. And lockdown has definitely, and COVID has definitely accelerated and increased the awareness of staycations. I think that's definitely kind of benefited Blackpool. But Blackpool is also trying to pivot away from its dependency on tourism. So there's a lot more all year round tourism anyway, which is helping the town. But they are also a massive hub now for renewable energy. So they've got a big kind of thing there, and they're trying to attract other industries and all of that kind of stuff as well. And yeah, we're also well connected to Preston, to Manchester. They're all kind of close by.
Yeah.
So I just think at the moment it's very underpriced. There's a lot of opportunities in terms of vacant properties because, unfortunately, the smaller guest houses and B&Bs, there isn't a model for it in this day and age now. And then you've got the bigger corporates kind of sucking up that market. But all of these properties now are primed for conversion, for the demand for what people want, which is residential kind of units there.
Totally makes sense. And given the fact that you've, over the last 10, 14 years, been a letting agent there, you know the place inside out. You know what the hotspots are. You know what the good roads are. You know who the players are and what sort of demand is like. And it's good that you've got that foresight as well. And in terms of because you talked about the sourcing deals and towards the end of the letting agents, are you still finding deals for London-based investors or investors from overseas that are chasing yields?
Yeah, so I do help a few of the clients that I worked with in the past, and they still are investing in London. From London, they're investing up there, and they just simply because they can't get the yields here. And it makes sense. A lot of the clients that I work with, they want ready-made stuff because they don't want to be doing refurbs, etc.
Right, turnkey solution.
Turnkey solution, yeah.
Which brings me on to the development stuff that you've been doing.
Yeah.
And delivering those really super high-grade designs. I've spoken to lenders that have funded you, and they've been out and they've been blown away with the quality of the finish that you're providing. And people normally don't associate Blackpool or certain areas of the country with that level. Which is exceptional. So, in terms of the move from being an estate agent to a developer, what's been the biggest challenge for you?
Finances.
Yeah.
Money. And I think all of that, it kind of comes into, there's a lot of uncontrollables. And, bills don't get done on time, and you've got another project that you were planning on starting, or a build will, gone way over budget because you're not estimated right, or you missed something. Or the GDV might be well off what you expect at the end, and it just has a knock-on effect to everything else. And coming back from being a business owner, you're going to be getting X amount as an income each month. You can kind of forecast, and you can depend kind of to a certain extent on that.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it can be difficult. And for me, I got before I even exited my business, I knew that I could get this big, significant capital injection. There was even a thought for me to think, I had a small portfolio, which is more than enough for my kind of living costs. I had this capital injection. I didn't really need to work, or I could have enjoyed myself to an extent. But all of that money, everything we got, we literally just kind of, let's kind of go full into developments, buy as much as I can, really push it, and probably look, to sacrifice now and go along the delayed gratification kind of route. But I found it's been tricky. It's been a massive learning curve, even though I've done smaller house refurbs and stuff like that. But when you go on to, say, the first big one, there was block of 11 flats. It's like doing 11 houses. I just thought, I went in the mindset, it's just another house refurb. And I've done in the past, I did a shop conversion to a house, to a 2-bedroom house, and I thought, how tricky can it be compared to that? But it was doing 11 of them.
Yeah, all at the same time.
Yeah, and the trades you got to deal with, I got to be a different caliber of trades. Because I still using my trades I was using for my house refurbs. They can't deal with that kind of stuff. They're not set up for that kind of, job. And so
you literally threw yourself in the deep end because you've gone from having a predictable revenue, a business that you've known over 10 years, and you can kind of control everything. And even then you found the challenges along the way, and you've almost pivoted to something that's very similar, especially at the end result. You're going to be able to do the property management stuff, but the development side of it, it's got planning involved, it's got finance, the cash flow forecasting, the delays. It is a whole new learning curve, right?
That's it.
And so, in terms of your overall journey, because I know that you're enjoying the development stuff, but you've spoken to me as well in the past about getting back into business or into a transaction business or trading business. Would you ever consider doing letting agency again or something else within property?
You know what? I get opportunities come for letting agents that always make my head turn. Like I think, oh, I would love to do it, and yeah, I'm definitely open to it. But something where I can have more of an impact. So maybe like an online agency or providing outsourced kind of services. But I definitely miss the buzz of a trading business, of having a full team and like a bit more of a structure. I love the development side as well, but I'm definitely ready for that next kind of business, whatever it might be. And I think prop tech's an interesting space at the moment. There are a lot of efficiencies to be had in especially the lettings industry, and very open to exploring that.
Yeah, because the development stuff, I applaud you because you didn't take a break and you did dive straight into it. But what I think the northeast, northwest valleys in Wales, for example, in the UK, can do with high yielding income producing assets is give you that income as well. But whilst you're building it in that period, we joke about it a few times. The money literally comes in and it goes straight back out again.
100%.
And then you never really see it until you actually take a moment to stop everything and say, right, I'm just going to sit on this portfolio.
Yeah.
But right now you're literally in that compound mode,
100%.
which has its stresses. So well done for doing all that. Now, if I was to ask you over your career, what is the best piece of advice that somebody's given you? What would you say?
Probably what my dad said to me early on. Your team is like your right hand, and without your right hand, you can't do much.
Wow.
So always kind of appreciated, respected my staff, always looked after them. And I feel like it's a shame sometimes, you don't see that happen. But I think that's really, really important.
There was an event that I was at in Milton Keynes. A guy called Paul Stapleton who had been on this podcast before. He invited me to this event, and he had a speaker, Rob Moore, you may know from the Progressive thing.
Yeah.
And he did a talk, and one of the things that he said that I thought was very interesting is he said, know who your what did he say? He said, know who your boss is. Know who your boss is. And I was like, okay, what does he mean by that? And he went into it, and it was actually that if you are a employee, it's quite easy to understand that concept. You've obviously got somebody that employs you, that's your boss, and it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. However, when you're a business owner, actually your boss, who do you answer to? It's your customers and your employees. So actually, even though you feel like you're working for yourself, it's not the case, actually. You actually have to keep everybody else happy for you to keep in a job as well. So you have to know who your boss is. And it's an interesting dynamic, and I think it kind of plays into that good bit of advice that your dad gave you. What's the worst bit of advice that you've ever received?
I think, when people make you plan everything too much. I think when you over-plan or you try and de-risk too much, it's just a layer of procrastination and it stops people. So I remember there's been enough opportunities that I've not pursued because I've been talked out about it, because people are like, oh, you're not looked into it in detail or whatever. But sometimes listen to your own feeling and just having a gauge of the overview of it. Sometimes it's better just to dive in, because what's the worst that's going to happen? We come to the world with nothing, right? What is the worst that's going to happen? If you lose a bit of money, that experience is the best thing. Even that block of 11 flats, I lost 300 grand on it. Wow. The one where we had to get the multiple bridges and all that. Yeah. But that 300 grand, I think I will manage to multiply with all the kind of stuff I'm doing now in the developments.
It's the cost of the lesson, right?
Exactly. And for me in life, the best things have always happened after I've done the hardest things.
Right, that makes sense as well.
And I've always kind of been, if I find something hard or I find it risky or I find it uncomfortable, I know naturally that's the thing that I need to go and do.
And interestingly, actually, you mentioned that you had some mentoring as well for the letting agency. We met on a mastermind. It was the first mastermind that I've ever done.
Yeah.
How has that sort of stuff helped you in your career and in surrounding yourself with the right people, it seems?
And very humbling, I think, because sometimes you get just like in Blackpool, there wasn't many people doing property or business at my age whilst I was young. And I feel like when you're around the right kind of people, it's very supportive, but it's very inspiring to see what other people are doing. And it's probably shaped how I approach developments now as well. And yeah, I got so much out of it. And you got the relationships, like obviously, like there's so much value I've had from, you know, knowing yourself and the other great guys on that mastermind. And I'd highly recommend it. And even now, I've like an accountability partner, which is my friend, who, you know, we just touch base with every 2-3 weeks, because sometimes you just need someone to kind of talk to your goals and someone to keep you on track. And that accountability, especially as an independent, but, you know, someone self-employed or a developer, you don't have someone that's holding you accountable. So having that as a support group is great.
You're obviously a property person, and this podcast is called Property People.
Yeah.
Now, in your opinion, with your success over the last years, what traits do property people need to have to be successful?
Resilience comes to mind.
Resilience.
Yeah.
Never say no. Never say
Yeah,
never.
and I think if you're going in and you expect things not to go wrong, you're in the wrong game. And you're going to have fallouts with contractors, you're going to have delays with solicitors, lenders are going to come, you know, they're going to be a pain. You need to be built for that. You need to be ready for that. And you've got to expect it, because if you don't, it's a tough game. Yeah. So... yeah.
Resilience, expect the unexpected. I think we started off actually because we had some technical issues with the setup here. I was like, hope for the best, expect the worst, and just keep going.
Yeah.
If people wanted to find you, if people want to reach out to you, find out about the amazing. I mean, what are the yields right now in Blackpool for a single let?
For a single let, you're probably looking at 10 to 12% quite easily. And then for like stuff they're doing, you know, it's well over 35% return on cash for the blocks of flats that, you know, we're developing out.
It's exceptional on what you're doing. So if people wanted to find out more about this, about the sourcing that you do, about the developments that you're doing, pick your brains about your wealth of knowledge within sales, lettings, and property management, how can they find you?
Yeah, best to probably find me on Instagram. So it's _prism.hq. And I'll be trying to share a lot more of my projects and stuff I'm doing on there.
It's well worth following Hamza as well, and watching him do his construction stuff, development stuff in a Porsche. It's very entertaining amongst everything else. It's really, really great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope actually we can do this again, not in the too distant future, where we can see those next steps of where you've taken the development stuff and whether you've got back on the saddle in the property business game.
Thank you for your time today. Really enjoyed it.
Cheers.
Cheers.